And now let's hear from our next finalist. We're going to dive right in. First up, we have the startup called Gist. i360X, which is they're going to talk about i360X, which is a SaaS platform assessing total stakeholder return in dollar terms. Hello, Gist.
Greetings. My name is Pawan Sukhdev, founder and CEO of Gist, a company whose mission is to make sustainability accessible to all. We are a firm which is a data analytics firm seeking insights and solutions for our clients. To make sustainability accessible to all, we've built what to many is the holy grail of this space, which is an SAS platform that measures and values not just financial returns, but impacts of companies in terms of natural capital, human capital, and social capital, leading towards stakeholder return. So what did we do for the challenge was to address a big problem. It's water scarcity. More than 3 billion people live in areas which are water scarce. And 3/4 of companies surveyed said that this is a substantive risk. How does this reflect in the portfolios of asset managers? Well, very poorly, because it's really difficult for them to select one of the 600 plus different ESG rating methodologies, most of which will rank water scarcity maybe 3 out of 5, and that's out of a score of 100. And then what do? We don't follow that route. Here on the screen, you see 2 very respectable rating agencies, and you see the problem. There's no correlation between how they rate the same 400 companies. Our approach is instead, let's work out the actual risk. Let's work out the actual impact of the company on water scarcity in the regions where it happens. And this is what i360X, our platform, already has been doing. And we decided, let's, for this particular Hackcelerator challenge, see if we can work out to whom these impacts fall, on whom they fall. Is it on agriculture, on communities, or on industry itself? And do that in economic terms, in dollars and cents, language that asset managers, bankers, CFOs themselves, and of course, insurers and anyone in the financial community understands. This map is actually made by us, and the colors represent dollars. In other words, dollars per cubic meter of water cost in each location. Each location means 50 by 50. So unlike most companies which provide analysis based on water basins, such as the WRI database for aqueduct, we provide a much finer analysis right down to 50 by 50 kilometers. In other words, identifying specifically what are the impacts of water scarcity on companies, on agriculture, and on local communities. This whole sequence of effort has taken place during a 3-week sprint. Thank you to MAS FinTech Hackcelerator for that opportunity. And we've built off the platform i360X and created a new tool called Aqualector, which I will now demonstrate. Here's how the Aqualector tool might be used, in this case, by one of the companies in the portfolio of our corporate partner, NN Investment Partners. This company is Novozyme, a company in the biotechnology space. They would have entered their water usage, and they would also have put in offsets like harvested rainwater and recycled wastewater. Having done that, they would then go to the report section of our i360X tool, look at natural capital externalities, which is not just water, but also greenhouse gases, air pollution, waste, and so on. And then for the company being analyzed themselves, they would then go to the locations that they want to explore. In this case, it's Denmark. So there you can see that the impact of water scarcity there is $300,000 impact. And most of that is on residential users, community risk. Whereas if you go to another location of the company, which is in Tianjin in China, there the impact is much bigger, $13 million worth of social impacts on water scarcity locally. And you can see that the biggest risk actually is on agriculture. What this can tell you is that the premium, the de facto cost, the additional cost of water scarcity varies quite a lot. In Europe, in this case, it would be only 2.45%, whereas if you go to China, Tianjin, it would be as much as 448%, measured effectively against a base price of 100. The same logic can be applied by us using portfolios. And here's, again, Novozyme's, the portfolio. It includes 10 companies which are selected by us as peers. You can see that there are many Japanese companies which have got lower impacts because of high efficient water, but there's one, Kyowakirin, which is much worse because of a new unit they purchased which had high waste and water use. All of this was made available to our corporate partners. In fact, they gave us 10 names. We gave them calculations and 10 peer group for all of them. This can scale. I'm grateful to my team for having created this toolkit in a very short time of 3 weeks. Delighted particularly with Siddharth, our local manager in Singapore, and the tool is now ready to be used by asset managers, banks, insurance companies, and indeed will help us in our mission, which is to make sustainability accessible to all.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Gist. And we're going to head over to the judges for a 5-minute Q&A. Are you ready for the questions from the judges?
Yes.
Okay, judges, do we have any questions for Gist? Please don't forget to raise your hand in the chat platform so we can see your questions. And of course, we're trying to get to all your questions as much as possible within the 5-minute time frame. And don't worry, Gist, the time of 5 minutes only starts after we have the first judge. Okay, we do believe we have our very first question, which is from Mark. Over to you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pavan. Beautiful presentation, very important topic. And my question is regarding the business model. What's your business model?
Right. Mark, what we have is a base platform, which is already open and available. We launched it a few months back, and companies and investors have signed on. We've got more than half a dozen companies, including BASF, Wipro, and Sviaskog, and some investors who have not given us an agreement to share their names. So that's begun. What we want is to offer a suite of products off the back of our base platform, which provides the total stakeholder return. And this is actually one of the first of our suite of products. Each was priced separately. Some people come straight to us, but we have collaborations like with the International Chamber of Commerce for SMEs. So we have a memorandum of understanding with them. And we're also signing up with a major data provider so that our impacts in capital terms and in SDG terms can be provided via their website to their more than 1,000 clients. So we are seeking channel partners such as this data provider to be able to replicate and scale what we do. Everything is on a commission basis, annual subscription basis.
Thank you very much for that. And next we have a question from Brian. Over to you, Brian.
Great solution, Pavan. Can you share and elaborate a little bit more on, when you talk about data sources, how forward-looking is the prediction of these models and the scarcity, data that, down the years and all? Maybe can you elaborate on that? Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks, Brian. Very, very good question. So today we are in a situation where we can calculate today's water scarcity. In other words, the extent of usage versus the extent of availability, and that's mapped out, and we can measure the economic cost. In calculating the economic cost, yes, we do account for the fact that using water in developing countries, the scarcity leads to health risks and costs, and these are the present values of the future health risks and costs due to this year's water scarcity. So that is modeled in. Likewise, in developed countries and some developing countries, you see the map that you saw, the global map, has got a calculation matrix for each square, 64,500 squares, each square, which shows 3 sources: health, agriculture, and transporting the water from where it's available to where it's being used. So each of those has a forward-looking estimate of the cost, which is present value. We can also, and that's an additional tool, it depends if we can get the funding for that, we can also do scenario modeling, because obviously we can play around with this model and see where the water scarcity goes based on global estimates that have been made of declining water scarcity. By the way, it's 20% worse in 2 decades already, right? So we can just imagine what this would look like if we model it out. That's one of our next models is planned like that.
Thank you for that. We've got about slightly over 2 minutes remaining on the clock. Winnie now has a question. Over to you, Winnie.
Hi, Pavan. This is a really important issue. And I wanted to ask, when you think about water scarcity across different regions, do you think about other things like regulation, the management or mismanagement for that certain area, whether they have developed it enough? I mean, these are the other factors that would impact that.
Yeah. Well, Winnie, you raise a very important point, because in addressing the problem of water scarcity, step 1 is to measure. You cannot manage what you do not measure. What we are doing is to provide companies and investors and banks and insurers and the private actors to be able to measure. We are very much hoping that regulators, including the MAS, will be able to use our tool and get macro level perspectives on where's the problem, how much is it, how significant is it, and what will happen if we do nothing, right? So that becomes a policy input. That's powerful, because then when you change policy and you add prices and costs to water scarcity and users of water in areas of scarcity, that's real solving problems.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we've got slightly over a minute left, so really quickly, Think Yet, I do believe you have a question. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pavan, for the presentation. Just a quick question on where your source of data with regards to availability and scarcity of water. Are they from structured data from the government, or are they from environmental monitoring, unstructured data?
No, it's very much structured. So the core data is from WRI, from the Aqueduct database. There's also research published in some journals, including a fine paper by Huang et al., which covered everything up 2018. And all of these are basically officially based on official sources of scarcity, already digging down to the national level and seasonally adjust. So it's seasonal numbers which they pull together, and we draw from these global and national databases. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I do believe that brings us to the end of our time of our Q&A. Once again, that's GIST. Thank you for answering our questions.